Welcome back. So we're still in our demo document and we've covered how to open and or create a new document. And we also got a 30,000 foot view of how Photoshop is laid out. Now we're going to look at how the tool panel is organized, because it does have an organization to it that's going to make it easier to find things. Now, kind of the default tool that you're going to be working with is the Move tool, and that's the top tool. And I do want to mention also that this can be expanded or collapsed. So you can expand it into 2 columns or collapse it into 1 column. So I'm going to be working with mine in a 1 column. Now notice I just want to mention this, this is a setting inside of Photoshop, and it's and it should be there by default, is that you have these kind of a user guide that goes along, so it helps you figure out what all of these tools are if you hover over top of them. If you're not seeing that, I think it's in. I thought it was in view, but I'm not seeing it right now. I don't ever turn mine off. They're helpful, even if you've been using it for 20 years. They're helpful. So, but if yours is off, I can help you figure it out. I'll find out where they are. But anyway, so I've got it in double tool right now. I'm working on a laptop, so this is not nearly as big of a screen as some people who might be working on a desktop version or an iMac. So, so we've got our Move tool. That is the main tool. There's also the Artboard tool if you have more than one artboard that you're working on. So we only have one artboard that we're working on right now. These 3 tools that come next, the Marquee tool, the Lasso tool, and the Quick Selection tool, these 3 tools, all are tools that are made to create selections. And you can see if I hover over this, you can see how these work and how they work differently. So there's the Quick Selection tool, the Lasso tool where you draw it out, and then the Marquee tool, which is just in geometric shapes. So it's just selecting an area that you would then manipulate in some way. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a non-destructive fashion, so you can have more flexibility with combining images and not being so worried about getting it right and being able to getting it right the first time, or having to redraw it a bunch. So we're going to talk about how to do that using layer masks. So these are the different ones. Notice that if there is, and almost every single tool has this little triangle in the bottom right hand corner. If you click on that triangle, you can see that there underneath is nested related tools. So the Marquee tool and the elliptical tool, Marquee tool are very similar. The geometry is different. One works in ellipse to a circle, the other one works in rectangles and squares. Then you have the Lasso tool, polygon lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool, which is a horrible tool. I wouldn't use it. Or avoid it. Every once in a while it proves me wrong. Also, another kind of terrible tool is the Magic Wand tool. That's also docked with the Quick Selection tool, which is a pretty awesome tool actually, and it's fairly recent addition. So we have the Crop tool and the Perspective Crop tool, the eyedropper and the color sampler. That's a little nuanced, and then we have this. So right here, so we've got our Move tool, and then these next 3 tools really have to do with creating selections. And then these are kind of administrative. So one's the Crop tool, and then the eyedropper tool. One's giving you information, and one's making major so chopping out pixels from the document, or changing the aspect ratio by cropping pixels out. Destructive edit in most cases. And then you have your healing brushes. So you have your spot healing. So this is, if we look at that, hover over top of it, it is taking out those rocks. They're making it look super easy, and for the most part it is, but you do have to be really careful about how you use that. The healing brush and the spot healing brush are very, very similar. Some of these don't have video examples. The spot healing brush removes blemishes and marks or entire rocks out of your photograph. But the nuance between these, and we'll get into this, one, you are actually selecting the source, and the other one, Photoshop is selecting it for you. So one's an auto, and the other one is user directed. The patch tool is very similar. It just is a copy and paste, so I could pick part of the sky and cover up, take a cutout of a particular part of the sky and patch it in another area of the sky to cover something up that I didn't want. Like maybe there was a duck that was flying and it was too far away in the sky and it just looks like a mark. So I might use the patch tool for that. I don't use the patch tool very much, to be honest. Content aware move tool. So this is similar to the move tool, but it will be aware of the content, and it will Photoshop will try to kind of auto fix things for you. So paintbrush tool, this also has the pencil tool underneath it. You all actually will have the few different types of brushes docked here because you're on 2019, so you'll also have the mixer brush, which we'll talk about in class. I have that, it's just kind of hidden. So right now you'll see probably 4 different brushes and I only have 2 showing. Then the rubber stamp tool, this is a great tool for making for restoration. So the healing brush, I'm surprised that they don't have this docked up by the healing brush because they're related. And we'll get into the nuance of what's different about the healing brush versus the clone stamp. The clone stamp is not content aware and the healing brush is, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you know what that is. I think it's easier to see it. So anyways, we'll get into that. This is a history brush, so it lets you paint back and forth to different states rather than going through the version history. You have your eraser, you have background eraser, so you're only erasing the background and not the object, and then the magic eraser tool. Usually anything with magic in Photoshop is not magical. And then you've got your gradient tool. The next few tools are things that you might find if you were working in a actual darkroom and processing your own prints from film. So things like there's different ways to change. So there's the dodge, burn, and sponge tool. So this changes your saturation. The dodge and burn. Dodge lightens a specific area, burn darkens a specific area. That's the sharpening tool, and then you have the blur and the smudge tool. And then you've got some vector tools. So down here with type, pen tool, the black arrow tool, and which they call the path tool or the direct selection tool. All of this is with working with vector shapes, which I would suggest if you're working with vector shapes that you work in Illustrator. Your hand tool and rotate tool, your zoom tool, which I shouldn't say never, but I rarely use the zoom tool. I would say learning that Command plus zooms in, Command minus zooms out incrementally. And then Command 0 fills the page so it fits into the working space. And then you can go to Command 1, which is 100%. So remembering that Command 1, Command 0, and Command minus, Command plus. all things that you'll be using. And if you're on PC, you would just replace the command with control. All right, so that's our tool panel. Oh, and just to also cover, if you see these little dots at the bottom, there's some other tools that if you didn't have them listed, they're here. Like there's my mixer brush, paint bucket tool, things like that. So if it's not on your tool panel, it's underneath this little the three little dots at the bottom. Also, this is your foreground and background colors, which is really important for Photoshop. Photoshop is unique in that it has a background color. Illustrator and the other programs do not have that, and it has a huge effect on your filters. So you really need to pay attention to what your background color is when you're using certain filters like diffuse glow. You can change your screen mode here. Oops, cancel. Do not want to go into full screen mode. I'm going to go to standard fit, and then you can change your, oops, this is a color mask tool. So whether you're in mask mode or not, but we'll look at how to create masks in a later video. So I hope that helps you understand your tool panel and what's available to you.